Welcome back to the third part of my conversation with Mr. Cecil Martin. Cecil, we've been talking about all sorts of elements of your background and how you've looked at high performance playing for the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL, the pinnacle of American professional sport. Tell us a little bit about transitioning high performance and your thoughts behind that.
Wow. I mean, I've had some interesting transitions in my life. If you think about from high school to college, you know, and that's academics as well as, you know, being a student athlete. And so that was a jump. That was a huge jump. And then that transition then from college to the NFL, you know, you're talking about the speed of the game being like lightning speed, faster than what it was in college.
The input, the dedication.
Yeah. I mean, I can almost say high school to college, it was the physical part of it. And then college to the NFL was the speed. And I'm just talking about the athletic side of it. But the mental side from high school to college was huge. And then the mental side from college to NFL was even bigger, because at that level it is more about the mental than the physical, because the physical is able to prosper or do what it does when the mental is right. And when you talk about transitions, that's no different in the business world. You know, whether you're going into a new position, you've been promoted, maybe you're going into a new industry. And for me, I mean, you know, you probably heard in number 2, you know, I've done a lot of different jobs, you know, and I've had a lot of different positions and a lot of different roles. And all of them, I've loved every one of them. And I've always approached them all with the same mindset of attitude and approach that helped me to reach high levels in, you know, sports and in business. So when I think about transitioning, you know, something that comes to mind is study, practice, lead, and teach.
Study, practice, lead, teach.
Lead and teach, because you have to always continually be a student. You know, always be a student. I mean, and I think maybe the most successful people in the world will tell you that.
Always,
Always be a student. I mean, there's always something to learn. All right? Study. And then practice, like, you know, actually applying what you learn. You know, whether it works or not, right? But the application is what makes it powerful.
Well, it's people who will see things and read things and talk about things but never do them afterwards. And those people there, and you look at some of the most successful CEOs and business people in the world, you know, they will be some of the most read. They've got an insatiable hunger and enthusiasm to pick things up. But not only do they just sit on that information, they work out where it can go and they execute. And that's an important part of that, right?
I had a guy, I was in all the things, I've done some other things. I was a deputy campaign manager for a mayoral candidate one time.
Of course. There's a new thing every day.
Oh my God! And that guy, I remember he told me, he was like, you know, because I would pick his brain. I was like, you know, what's the secret? Because he had amassed a huge wealth in business, and then he wanted to go into politics. And so he said, be a ferocious reader. Be a ferocious reader. Those were his words. I'll never forget it. But study, practice. People talk about knowledge is power. You know, and yes, knowledge is power, but application of knowledge is the next level of power, right? And that's the next level of peak performance for anyone. So study, practice, and then teach. Like, always be willing to pass information on. Sometimes you learn more when you're trying to teach someone what you've learned.
I believe that 100%.
You know what I mean? And there's only so much. So if you're applying, so if you're studying it, you're applying it, right? And then you're teaching it to somebody else, man, your growth has gone to a whole nother level, right? Study, practice, and then leadership, right? I mean, you have to be willing to do those little things and lead by example, as well as be able to verbally say what needs to be said when it's needed.
So that lead by example is an interesting part, isn't it? Because there's some very good people at doing that teach bit. There's a very instructional sort of method of delivery. Do you see people being able to just deliver it and lead it? So tell me a little bit about your thoughts around leadership and leading by example.
I think leading by example is probably the most important one. But with that being said, that's why a team aspect of an onus and a responsibility towards leadership is key. Because then each person's personality gets to come out in a way in which provides all the leadership qualities that that team or organization needs.
So you build a team of leaders, effectively.
You build a team of leaders, or you build a team of people who have an approach and an ownership, if you will, of the success of that team or that organization in them, so that they're able to feel that my example means something. And my words based on my success and my result means something. And then the following up of what I say I'm going to do means something.
Yeah.
And because I think that resonates. Because also the best leaders in the world can be led.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and if someone is in a leadership role and they're providing that leadership, well, how great is it when the person you've been leading or the people you've been leading turn around and they say some things and do some things that teach you something and lead you.
Yeah, this is talked about a lot in the Red Arrows. So the Red Arrows, you know, I've spoken to people like Justin Hughes, Jace Hawker, who are Red Arrows leaders, and they talk very much about the team being able to assume that leadership position, and the great leaders stepping back and allowing people to put the right skills into the right action at the right time, right?
Well, maybe that's another level of peak performance in leadership, really.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when can I back away and trust that, you know, what's getting ready to get done or what I want them to do, while risky and allowing them that leadership or responsibility, needs to get done for their growth and overall growth.
Yeah, and having that humility at the same time, the humility to be able to step back and say, look, there's someone who has that expertise and they should be taking that particular play. Yeah. Ego. You know, we talk back to Vince Lombardi, going back to football, and the sort of you know, the aspects he had on humility and leaving your ego at the door is to me fundamental to all of that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Look, we've spoken a little bit there about coaching. We've spoken a little bit about leadership, and you speak a lot about mentors, and you've been very fortunate to meet some amazing people in your life, your career. Tell me about the great mentors in your life. Unfortunately, we lost very recently the great Kevin Cadle.
Yes.
And you definitely speak about him as one of your mentors. What are the big takeaways that will set you up for the rest of your life in his memory?
You know, Kevin Cadle came into my life at a time which I was involved in a lot, and I felt like I was on a path to achieve a lot. And throughout those 12 years of knowing him, you know, a lot of things that we talked about and a lot of things that I knew I could talk to him about, and how he would give me his perspective and guide me in kind of the right way to look at something or to approach something without telling you what to do, was pivotal to my growth professionally and personally. And I think one thing that Kevin, you know, taught me is don't worry about the things that you can't control. Work on the things that you can. You know.
And you've spoken a lot about that.
Oh yeah. Because worrying about things that you can't control. I mean, worry that's connected to negativity. That's connected to fear. That's connected to things that aren't growth provoking, right? And then, but on the other side, work on the things you can control. You know, those are the things that are in your control. Those are the things that you can affect. You know, for the result that you want. And Kevin Cadle, I mean, in the broadcast game, he taught me so much, and he was a strong Christian, strong, faith-driven man. Was for, you know, having someone like that in my life, you know, really strengthened my faith as well. And
I think one of the things you said about his funeral that really interested me was about how many people were there, and owed so much to him. His legacy of how many kids and people he's brought through, from his coaching through the basketball through to what he did obviously as a mentor to you in the broadcast world, etc., etc. That's a great thing to have, right?
Oh my God, his impact was unbelievable. I will say this, it was interesting because when I would talk to Kevin Cadle on the phone, even if I was in the States and I called him up about something, you know, you felt like you were the only person he was talking to about some of these things.
Yeah.
And you just, and he made you feel like he cared so much about, you know, whatever it is we were talking about. Well, at the funeral, I mean, it felt like there was probably 10 or 20 people who told the same stories. And I said, well, Kevin, when did he have time to talk to so many people on the phone about so much, while, you know, really being pivotal in building the NFL up in the UK, you know, on Sky. And
well, look at where it is now, and the sort of impact it's had. That's again, it comes back to that word legacy.
Yes, and what he did in basketball. I mean, being the winningest basketball coach in UK history. I mean, you know, he was the kind of guy that had what you called humility. Yeah. You would never know it. Yeah. You would never know it. Yeah. So he taught me a lot, and I've had a lot of mentors in my life that have come in the form of coaches or teachers or you know, people like that. And so my coach in high school, you know, rest his soul. Yeah. And you know, it's interesting. It's the first time I'm even realizing this is when I lost my high school coach, who was very, very pivotal in my life. One person that was really there for me was Kevin Cadle, because I happened to be here in London. Yeah. And because of a huge storm that shut down Heathrow, I wasn't able to make it to the funeral. Yeah. And I was supposed to speak at it, and I remember, you know, Kevin was there for me. and we worked it out. I was able to do some things remotely, you know, to allow my coach to pass on in the way, because he'd asked me to speak. And then a lot of coaches, you know, Brad Childress, who recruited me out of high school to the Philadelphia Eagles, was a huge mentor of mine. Now he's assistant head coach at the Kansas City Chiefs. And, Army Manassian.
That's working all right for him at the moment, isn't he?
Say it again?
It's working all right at the Chiefs.
He's working it. He's working it. He's working it. Yeah. You know, I call, you know, there's a guy called Pops. You know, he's been as much of a father to me as I've known. Yeah. And so yeah, I've been lucky. I've been really lucky in that sense. You know, and I think what I would tell anyone, you know, business or otherwise, you know, be open to that instruction and that mentorship.
From wherever it comes, right?
From wherever it comes, and then seek it. Yeah. You know, and in seeking mentorship, you know, look at the company that you keep. You know, and the people that surround you. You know, because I think that's, you know, look, that's another part of mentorship, isn't it? You know, if you're hanging with people who are like-minded, you know, and understand, you know, what it takes, you know, and are willing to sacrifice in the right way, and sacrifice in the right way to the point where it's not a sacrifice. Yeah. Right? It's a purpose. Yeah. And I think that's what definitely comes down to what you're talking about with Kevin there. You know, it's so many people felt like they were the only person being spoken to, that there was that time that, you know, you've spoken to me in the past about how you could pick up the phone at any sort of stage and he'd be there, and it would be that's the central thing for him. Yeah. And you look at it, and there's some great stories about coaches through all sorts of areas, coaches through businesses, who have that same sort of, you know, that same sort of story. People there who will talk about that and eulogise about what happened with that and how someone would make time for it. And the ability for someone to make time for people and actually give them that time and give them that sort of give themselves to people. Yeah. You know, great things happen with that, right? No, it does. And and the great thing is it trickles down, trickles up. Yeah. And trickles all the way around. Yeah. Right? Because it touches every person that you touched. Yeah. You know? That's a great story. So look, we could talk forever on all of this sort of stuff. There's loads more for us to catch up on. That'll be another show. But I'd love to leave you with one last question. And it's a question which I ask a lot of people, and saying, look, from everything we've spoken about, from your journey from high school through to investment management, through to broadcast, through to speaking, if you could give someone one bit of advice, what would that bit of advice be? Attitude is everything. I think that would be the one. Attitude is everything, because I think it encompasses everything that we just talked about. Yeah. You know, I mean, you can from a peak performance standpoint in whatever industry or whatever your goals are, at its core, attitude is everything. And shoot, I mean, towards your faith, towards your family, towards, you know, how you enjoy yourself, how you strive for something better than what you had or what you even think is possible. Attitude is everything. One thing I would say, attitude is everything. Well, I believe that. I'm with there. Listen, it's been wonderful talking to you. Thanks so much for giving up your time. Thank you everyone for watching, and we hope that you've taken as much, or I hope you've taken as much away from speaking to Cecil as I have, and we'll catch you up again soon on another episode of Recruiter 360 TV. Cecil, it's been brilliant. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you. Great to be here. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you very much.